would open us with a word of prayer and the pledge of allegiance of the flag. So if you would please stand.
We all bow. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning with thanksgiving on our heart. Thank you, O Lord, for allowing us to learn to live in a rich and free country that we live in, Lord. We thank you for each and every one who has come here today, O Lord, to engage with our county commissioner and our board. Help our board, O Lord, today to deliberate on this important agenda item and that we make the best decision for our community. Oh Lord, we ask that you look upon our nation, bless our country, bless all of the people in government, and help us to work better together as a nation and to exhibit more love and kindness and caring towards one another. We ask these many blessings in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning. We're going to open the meeting up with public comments. Is there anybody that would like to come up and, I don't have a written thing, but is there anybody wants to come up and make a comment? Okay, then we'll read and I'm sorry, I left my glasses at home, declaration of need for the emergency meeting. Due to emergencies, are those readers?
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, yes. Due to emergency of circumstances regarding the Bradford County Fair Association Incorporated and the situation of the property for the Bradford County Fair, an emergency meeting of the Bradford County Board of County Commissioners was called to discuss. So, and in that, I know that the president of the Fair Association is here, Mr. Bob Milner. So, Mr. Milner, if you want to come up and just open it up and let everybody know why we called the meeting.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And as your Chairperson Andrew said, I became aware last night that y'all had an interest in the outcome of what was going on at the Fair Association, and you should. And we had full intention at some point in the near future, depending on a meeting that's happening in the next 2 days, of informing you of our status, even though you don't have a financial interest in the Fair Association or the property like many other counties do. What I mean by that is the majority of fair associations throughout the state of Florida, I come to find out as I attended the Florida Federation of Fair meetings, the county owns the land and the Fair Association owns the buildings, appurtenances, equipment there too, and there's a long-term, usually 99-year lease and that kind of a thing. We are one of the few exceptions. We're in the Bradford Agricultural Fair Association, as we're known, and we have to be an agricultural fair in order to get any of the grants from the state. We actually own everything out there and have. And obviously the county commission, you and the previous ones have supported in different manners, including the once a year $7,500 from TDC for hosting our annual fair and so forth. But again, it's somewhat of an exception to most ownerships. I have typed out a brief thing so I can keep it, Madam Chairperson, as brief as possible. And then with me, of course, is our fair manager, Dale Woodruff. And let me tell you who our members are. Besides myself, currently as president, James Bauckham, who's present is our vice president. Chuck Kramer is the treasurer. Tammy Woodard is secretary. The board members are Chris Page, Roxanne Rozier, Tommy Crosby, and 50-year member Warren Carver. And Dale became the manager in 2016 or 17, and I came on the board just 3 years ago, right after the COVID pandemic hit. For years, everyone involved with the steer and swine sale held each year at the fairgrounds complained about the old barn where the animal events were held, and rightly so. It was built over 50 years ago and was woefully inadequate to hold modern-day events. The Fair Board, under Dale's leadership, designed a replacement building and sought legislative funding through a grant from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. The initial funding was granted in the amount of $1.5 million in the 2018-19 legislative year, with a clear understanding at that time by all parties involved that there would be a second round of funding the next year of an additional $1.5 million. After receiving input from several sources, including the Bradford County Emergency Management Department at the time, and it was not under the sheriff at that time, it was still under the previous board's control, a decision was made to harden the design to make the building a Cat 5 certified building, meaning it should survive a Category 5 hurricane. By the way, to this date, it is still the only state-certified Cat 5 building in Bradford County. None of the schools, none of the churches that have been previously having to house evacuees and so forth. And one of the reasons for that decision was to enable the county / an emergency management to shelter individuals leaving their homes, either voluntarily or due to nature's wrath, during declared emergencies. In fact, I'm sure many of you know, a few weeks ago during Idalia, I received a call from Lieutenant Witt on, excuse me, Monday morning. Yeah, Monday morning saying, Mr. Milner, we need the arena as soon as possible. And as you probably know, Cross Church leases the arena from us. And so, to their credit, I notified the pastoral administration at the church, and by that night they were out. And Brad and his folks and the Salvation Army and Health Department, they were all set up by Tuesday morning. And then we did house 20-something people in the arena and one dog in Building 3, which is air conditioned. Anyway, when it came time for the second round of the $1.5 million, the legislature had experienced, or was experiencing, the Parkland shooting in Broward County, Hurricane Irma, or as Pam Whittle has lovingly named her, Armageddon for us, Hurricane Michael, and then the COVID pandemic. So in the meantime, the Fair Board had made a decision in 2019 to go ahead and secure an additional $1.5 million from the Community State Bank, with a well-founded belief that they would have the remaining funds the next year and pay off the loan. Unfortunately, the remaining $1.5 million never came from the state. I just mentioned the alleged reasons due to all the emergencies. Now, the offices of our then state senator and state representative at the time tried to get special funding, but apparently state law does not allow funding for existing debts, only for new projects. There is an exception for assisting local governments in an emergency, but as you know, the fair is a private 501c6. We are not a government entity and therefore not eligible for such emergency funding. So despite everybody's efforts, again, I've only been on the board 3 years, everybody's efforts to contact everybody with any semblance of authority in state government, and I can name some of them that y'all know, we have been unable to secure the additional 1.5. The Fair Board was initially paying a payment, and for the last couple of years, we've paid interest only with $4,500 a month, plus $1,000 a month voluntarily. With the feds raising interest rates to try to cool inflation, all financial institutions also adjusted their rates upward on any existing variable rate loans, which is what ours was, unfortunately not a fixed rate. The current revenue stream from building rentals and normal net profit from the fair itself is not enough to meet the new payment schedule of over $9,000 a month. In fact, since the COVID pandemic, the fair has not resulted in our normal net profit, and in fact had to close for 2 days for the first time ever in 2022, y'all may remember, due to the tropical storm and 15 inches of rain in 4 days. These things collectively depleted our reserves and put the association in a position of not being able to pay the new loan payment. I met with a longtime friend who agreed to offer the bank $1 million to clear the $1.4 million note. But despite 2 discussion sessions, the bank was unwilling to accept the $1 million payout. Let me be clear. That is their right as a financial institution that made the initial loan. We're not here to bash the Community State Bank or anybody else. They have that opportunity and they have that right. Unfortunately, the Community State Bank is no longer a community bank, and the folks who made the initial loan agreement are no longer at the bank. So there is a meeting tomorrow with the CEO of the investor group that owns the bank, not the representative of Community State Bank itself, and our generous potential donor, which is Mr. Jimmy Gissy, a friend of mine, and some of you know him, grew up here. You may say, why would Jimmy offer him $1 million? Our 501c3 we set up earlier this year, separate from our association, and our association agreed that we would name the arena permanently for the corporation, persons, groups, or individual who donated $500,000. That we would permanently name the arena. And, but that's not really what Jimmy's looking for. He don't want his name on it. He wants his parents, Joe and Mary Gissy, who were my neighbors for many years. And it goes back a long ways. I hired Jimmy as a teenager when Dale Brown and I opened the Dairy Queen October 2nd of 1972. That's how long ago. But anyway, so there's a meeting tomorrow, again, with the CEO of the investor group that owns the bank. That will either result in an agreement that either allows Mr. Gissy to buy the note, or the bank can legally proceed with either a lien on the property or foreclosure proceedings. Now, we have tried to avoid that at everything we could because the entire 28 acres and over $7 million in buildings are encompassed in the loan, which is typical for financial institutions that do a loan like that. So we can't sell off any of our assets in an attempt to make loan payments. You probably know the state awarded us $3 million last year to build the 3 long-awaited barns of swine, chicken, and goat rabbits, and we've done that, and they're wonderful. They're almost finished, and they're going to be fantastic. However, the state still declines to provide the additional $1.5 million, as I've indicated, to pay off. Unfortunately, the bank, a little over a month ago, without no notice, froze our checking account and a separate CD we had of $81,000. Now, after Dale and I met with them, we did manage to get them to release the checking account so we could start pay some of the bills and do our operating things, but they still, to this point, have refused to release the $81,000 in the CD that we had. Okay, so again, earlier this year, we created a 501c3 already, and it's comprised of representatives from the Fair Association, Swine Association, the Cattlemen's Association, and a Union County resident who also is a constitutional officer in Union County. But we're planning a legacy donation campaign that was already in place over the next several months, and we have the assistance free of a consultant who made a living doing major gift solicitations for not-for-profits, and she's willing to do it for free for us. But that's going to take a little while to get insufficient funds to pay the loan and have operating capital. So that's how we got to where we are. Hopefully you understand that, and that's a little longer than I wanted to be. But that's the basics of how the Fair Association found itself in where we are right now. And with that, Madam Chair, Dale or I will be glad to answer any questions from the board.
Madam Chair?
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir, and Mr. Cornegay, just for the point of clarification, so should we now have voted now to declare the meeting need as an emergency and then move on to the discussion?
We've already declared the meeting as an emergency meeting, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was in the chairman's opening statement.
So when we do that, we have to take action, a motion and a vote. So I was just going to suggest to our chair that I would offer a motion to declare the emergency need for the meeting, and then,
Absolutely correct, yes.
okay.
Thank you, Ms. Spooner. Do we
Yes,
have a
ma'am.
second?
No second.
Any discussion? So we'll vote. Mr. Reddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry? Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrew's aye, so it passes 5-0. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Milner, on Mr. Gissy's offer, has that changed since any of this other discussions been taking place?
It has not, Commissioner Daugherty. The bank executive or vice president himself is the one that called me and said, would Mr. Gissy be willing to meet with the CEO that owns us rather than the bank itself? I said, sure, give him a call. You got his number. And they did. I was not involved in that. And then Jimmy called me and told me, you know, we've got a meeting next Friday, and told me a lot more about it that I won't talk about publicly. But
Okay.
the offer on the table, to answer your question, was still $1 million, and the bank declined that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It does.
May I ask? And so basically tomorrow is when you have your meeting and some decision or whatever with Mr. Gissy.
Yes, ma'am. 2 gentlemen are meeting that have the ability to resolve it, but we're wholly dependent on their meeting.
Yes. And the fair and that fairground is a very important entity for our community. Important to not only our community, for our surrounding communities as well. And so our county is certainly concerned about the well-being of that continuation.
And again, as I said in my opening comment, we, on behalf of the Fair Association, one of our members, Mr. Tommy Crosby, and I introduced members earlier, but Tommy just entered. We appreciate your interest in the outcome of the continuation and sustainability of the fair. It's kind of ironic in a way with not only the recent building of the new buildings at $3 million of state funding, but we did about 1,800 feet of drainage pipes. We've increased the size of the midway, and as a result of that, and brought in the 150 loads of dirt, whatever it was, 331. Okay. We were actually planning the biggest and best fair ever next year because it enables Degler, our entertainment venue that does the midway, provides the entertainment, to bring in larger rides and more rides that we have never had before. And those weigh about 80,000 pounds. And so you got to make sure that everything you're putting them on drains properly, and it obviously meets the engineering specs and for compactness and so forth. So we've been doing all of that, amongst other things, in preparing for what we hope to be the largest fair we've ever had. Let me say very quickly that the 501c3 that we've put together in conjunction with our Fair Association board members, we honestly believe on our early discussions with a number of individuals, mostly who still live in and around in Bradford County and some outside of it, we will be able to raise the major gifts. And when I say major, we're talking about $100,000 donations, for example, for naming of the 3 buildings that we just built, a couple of food courts and things that are being constructed as a part of that with additional concrete and so forth. And there's some people that will be willing to make sizable donations, but we've got to move that forward as fast as we can, and we simply couldn't put it together in time to avoid the bank doing whatever they wanted to do. Or felt they needed to do, let me just say that. So we believe that if we can get through the next few months, and if they would release the $81,000 in the CD to give us our operating funds, because we have to prepay things in preparation for hosting the fair next year. We have to put out a lot of money before we ever have the fair. And so anyway, we have great confidence we will be able to raise funds from people. And I'm not saying we'll raise the whole $1.5 million, and certainly not in the next year or two. That's why Jimmy's offer was we felt the best. But again, that's the bank's right to refuse it, and so that's where we are.
Well, just to let you know, I mean, we were just informed of it, of the condition, and a lot of us were very shocked. And because we just simply didn't know. We were told that the foreclosure is Friday. And so with that being so final, that's why we called the meeting. Because like Ms. Spooner, I think she, in her opening statement was, this is very important to all of us. I mean, not just you guys, but, and I know it's a great concern of y'all's, but that's why we asked for the meeting, is because we don't want to lose this. I mean, we don't want somebody just to come in and pick it up and turn it into whatever they may see fit, or mow it down and build something there. We would like to keep it. I mean, so many of our families are, I mean, they show animals there, have forever and ever. And so, I mean, and of course, you know, we have reserves. And so that's why we called the meeting to find out exactly what was going on. We didn't know about the agreement, and so that's why we're here, I guess is what I'm saying.
I understand, and if there's any board member who feels rightfully so that the fair should have come to you earlier or made you aware of it, I will take that on behalf of the board, and we apologize for that. We haven't asked you for any money. I'm not going to put him on the spot. Tommy is one of the assistant county administrators for finance and all in Lothrop County, and he can tell you that, for example, Lothrop County's Fair Association went broke. They couldn't do anything, and they're actually building a new fair out by Newberry for how much, Tommy? May I ask, Madam Chair? How much? Yeah, and as you know, probably, excuse me, Duval County is, a lot of that has to do with Shad Khan and all that, but they're moving theirs from downtown next to TIAA Bank out to the Equestrian Center on 218 that you go by just before you get to Cecil Field at a tune of $25 million. And that's the local government owning and running the fairs, and there's others that do that. So we're again, a little bit different. We're more like Nassau's fair's coming up in Callahan in a couple of weeks, and Baker County. Most of those are like us. The smaller ones, the fair associations tend to own. But the majority of fairs throughout the state of Florida are, in fact, situations where the county owns the land. Martin County is moving to the west side of, and Dale and I went down there for their fair, and they're being kind of thrown out, but the county is moving them out to Indiantown, which used to be the armpit of Martin County, if you're familiar with Stewart in that area. But it's growing tremendously, and they have a huge Hispanic population that is located in that area in Indiantown. Anyway, they're moving, the county is moving the entire fair out there. And again, the county will own the property, and the Martin County Fair Association will run the fair. It's an agreement. And there's nothing good or bad. It's just that we didn't have that here. You know, the Fair Association always owned what was out there and always supported by the commission, but there was never a direct financial contribution, to my knowledge, in the 50 years or so.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Certainly.
So, Mr. Miller, like, you have the meeting scheduled tomorrow, and then there's an offer or whatever, and you would see what would happen with that. But if this board were interested in assuming that responsibility, or if that didn't work out, I don't know what you guys' final plans are with that, but if this board were interested in assuming that responsibility, just trying to get a feel of what that would mean in terms of, let's say, if the board owned that,
Right.
and let's say the Fair Association leased and did its business as it normally would that be something that would be amenable to the Fair Association? In my mind, I guess I futuristically saw the fairground as a place where, becoming a state-of-the-art entertainment place where you could have people coming for large entertainment, I see a stadium out there, I see all of those things I envision as the future of that property. And it would pain me if something happened and that couldn't happen. So I guess I'm asking the question and thinking out loud all at the same time, because all of this is just
Sure.
fresh to us. But if that were something that this board could entertain, because the first thing that come to mind, well, how would that impact us financially? Because we were asking so much from our citizens. But if we were financially able, based on our status with our clerk and so forth, to take on that, would that be something?
Yes, ma'am. Listen, be very clear, and thank you for asking that, Commissioner Spooner. Even though we're not here today to ask for money, the Fair Association would be more than willing and to sit down with the county subsequent to tomorrow's meeting, as you indicated, depending on what happens, and see if there's a way to forge a partnership going forward that would still allow us to have the fair and everything. I was smiling while your comments, because Dale is extremely creative. He doesn't need this. Dale's well off, okay? But he and his wife enjoyed great success in the business. They were drawn to Bradford County because of their friendship with Terry and Jennifer Vaughn and what he did in the elections business for over 50 years. But and admittedly, if I may, his 2 strokes have slowed him down a lot. That's why I'm up here running my mouth instead of him. But he is extremely creative. And Ms. Spooner, exactly what you just said is what we have planned in the immediate near future. Everything from truck or tractor pulls to all kinds of festivals that can host 2,500 to 3,000 people. We don't have a stage right now that will let us do some of the things, and not that I'm making the analogy to this particular day, but like on the Swanee, I think this weekend is a bluegrass festival. Many of you have been over there many times, and they got different stages. Clay County has their open pavilion building they use not only for the livestock and the swine show and sale, but it's also for a concert venue back during the fair. And probably most of you have been over there. They have Christian concerts, they have Western, and they are somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people. We could do that in the arena. Dale has the plans already drawn out, and our construction company has, and our engineers and everybody has already, and the architects have looked at that for a separate funding to tear down buildings 1 and 2. And Congressman Kat Kamick is working on that for next year's funding. Couldn't do it for this year, and they've got enough turmoil up there, as you know. But anyway, it would replace the old buildings 1 and 2 with another sufficient building with showers, everything ADA equipped, and that would become the county's shelter. First resort, not the arena, for housing of everybody during any event. And anything that John's Conference Center can't handle, and Pam and them do a great job with the size that they have, we would be able to house that. But out in the Midway, we can do all kinds of events and festivals and car shows and things, and that's our goal. That's literally in our written plan of what we wanted to do strategically, but those take a little bit of time to put together. We had to get the fair and the grounds in the shape that they're now getting in before we could do those things. And so we believe we can have many events that will net a profit, continue to rent the buildings. Building 3 has been rented many, many weekends recently for high school reunions, family reunions, and so forth. But to be clear, right now, nothing we do from building rentals or even having a profitable fair comes close to letting us pay a $9,000+ monthly payment. We can't do that. But we would love to entertain, subsequent to tomorrow's meeting, any ideas working with the county going forward to continue the sustainability of the fair. Okay?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Milner, I appreciate you owning the fact that you had not reached out yet, but in your defense, I do want to say that you and I talked yesterday.
Yep.
And I know that that was your intent to, have this meeting tomorrow and then reach out if it was necessary. So just want to let the board know that I know that that was your intent.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Cornigan?
Yes, Madam Chair, I guess staff needs some direction in the event that the negotiations tomorrow are unsuccessful. Is it the will of the board for staff to move forward with whatever administrative piece is necessary to prevent the foreclosure? Is that
Yeah.
the consensus?
Yes, we would like for you to do that.
Okay, because once that foreclosure process starts, and we have a banker in the room, so Ms. Evans, if I misspeak, are you Joe? Yes. Okay, all right. Well, we have
Come on up, Joe.
we have the main guy in the room. Once that process starts, the foreclosure process, they have their timeline, and it will take, I guess, two months, maybe 60 days, 90 days, whatever it takes to advertise and give everyone an opportunity for the process to go through, and then at that point, it will come here for auction. The property will come to the county for auction. And that's what we want to avoid, because I don't know how much that property's worth overall, $6, $7, $8, $9 million. The county can't get into a bidding war
No.
with,
Right,
for that, for that amount.
right.
So we want to be sure and do whatever it is we decide to do. If it's to take over that debt or pay off that debt, then we need to get it done before the foreclosure process begins.
So Madam Chair, we would ask,
Am I correct, Joe?
so we would ask Mr. Kennedy to do just what you were suggesting, because that's a tremendous investment for our county.
Right. And I'm sorry, Joe, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do we have some idea when that process would begin if the talks are unsuccessful?
We have not even begun that process. We are trying to do everything that we can not to begin that process.
Okay.
We have not engaged counsel. We have not started any foreclosure proceedings at all. We are considering to be just in conversations. So, and just some level of urgency and some resolution to what we can do.
Okay.
Happy to elaborate on any of this if we'd like. My apologies, I didn't know about this until about 8:30.
Madam Chair.
My apologies for not having to know this.
So if you, If your meeting is tomorrow and it's not successful, would you be starting foreclosure?
We would come back to the conversation again to say that there wasn't an agreement that could be made, and there was a somewhat of a counteroffer to Mr. Gissy's offer initially. So, you know, I know that I asked our major investor to have this conversation. Both our investor and Mr. Gissy, our real estate developers, they walk in the same world and, you know, speak the same language, and so are very creative in ways that they can resolve it. So I asked him to do this, and he's more than willing to do that, because again, we are a community bank, we do not want to do this type of community, because we can, but we're also a small business as well.
So did you say that there is another offer on it?
We countered to Mr. Gissy's offer.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Milne?
Thank you, and I didn't know Joe was back there. Thank you, Joe, till I saw him as the vice president. And in fact, as I said, I credit him with putting Mr. Gissy with the gentleman he's meeting with tomorrow. But as he's indicated, we have not been informed, and he's just told you, of any foreclosure proceedings yet. My understanding was there was a belief of some kind amongst commissioners and/or others in the community that the bank was foreclosing on us. And I've tried to tell people that is not the case. The bank has given us adequate opportunity, you know, attempt to raise the funds, and as Joe said, counteroffer was made. So at this point, at least, there's no foreclosure proceedings. That doesn't mean, and to Scott's point, your county manager's point, I appreciate that, Scott, that you give staff and/or Mr. Thompson direction working with us, should that become necessary. I promise you, we would be back before the board at whatever public meeting that Scott and Denny would recommend to let you know where we are and then work with them. But right now, we have no foreclosure pending. I just wanted to clarify, as Joe said. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. So just one last question. Has the bank given you any finite length of time to do whatever?
Well, they have, and quite frankly, we're past that, Ms. Spooner.
Okay.
We were at the point where we had to tell Joe and the bank we simply could not make that. And we didn't. Couldn't make last month's payment. Can't make this month's payment. Well, I agree on the seizure. Again, they have initially, they relented and allowed us to have the checking account. We just don't have the CD yet, which is still our ability to operate. So we're having to do that from some personal funds, to be very honest with you, and other contributions. But we've got to get out of that mode pretty quick. That's not sustainable. Okay.
So is there a time limit?
There has to be some time limit, yes, but we have nothing like that. We are just kind of pushing that as far as we can to try to come to a resolution so we can have that conversation.
Well, I think it's the consensus of the board. If tomorrow falls through, then please contact us and let us know. Like I said, this means so much to so many, and we will do everything we can to stop it from happening. So,
Thank you. Thank you again to the board.
anything else, guys?
Could I say something?
Absolutely.
If we move forward any further with this, I would say that the county take whole ownership of the fairgrounds and lease back to the Fair Association, and have a majority appointed board members by the Board of County Commissioners, because I'm not comfortable with somebody going forward from this that made $1.5 million decision on we thought, we were told, and we were led to believe.
Right.
I'm sorry. I just can't. I just can't be comfortable with that. So I wouldn't invest any of this county's money unless we have whole ownership and control.
Okay. All right.
I got to feel the same way about that.
Okay. Anything else? Anything from the public? All right, Mr. Carnegie?
No, ma'am, I have nothing.
All right, well, we really appreciate y'all being here this morning, and with that,